All right, everybody, welcome in. Go ahead and get all the cameras on and going. Okay, awesome. All right, as you guys know, we like to make this a little bit of a participating environment. Lewis carried the weight for us yesterday. We see he got his camera back on. It's good to see you again, Lewis. We want some more faces, hopefully today. All right, some more participation as we focus on MBE. So to get us started here today, I first want to ask, how do we feel about the multiple choice? Would love to get an idea of just, coming into this, what are some of the things that we struggle with multiple choice, that we like about multiple choice? Yeah, I just want to do a little bit of a pulse check on how we feel about multiple choice. So yeah, let's go ahead and start to put it in the chat. Let's see what we got here. All right. All right, we like that you can at least guess. That is one of the, honestly, guys, something to lean into for multiple choice is that the right answer choice is in front of you. So that part is comforting. Felt much better than Feb 25. All right, Lewis, let me see something in there about how you feel about multiple choice. It's horrible. I believe I know the issue, but most of the time end up picking the wrong answer. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Different, must practice in test mode, feel you don't get the feedback immediately, so it's lonely. Yeah, when you're in that 200 questions, it's a very yeah, do or die situation. You don't get that immediate feedback. You got to be comfortable doing one question, giving it your best shot. All right, putting it out of your brain, moving on to the next one. Let's see what else we got. It's my weakest area. All right, Sandra, hopefully we're going to work on that today. Go so deep in exceptions. Yes. Benjamin, the multiple choice is really, what is exposing who knows the law at a certain level of depth. You can get away with a more surface cursory level understanding for the essay. It's not ideal, but you can maybe talk your way through it. And or essays typically only, per subject focus on some main issues. Whereas with multiple choice, you just open up the floodgates as far as what can be tested and the exceptions and things like that. Okay. Let's start to, one more question as we just give some people a moment to get into the workshop. One last question is, what type of guidance are you looking for? What would you all like to get? Obviously, I have a setup for today, but I'm curious as to what is it that you want to get out of today's session? How do you want to improve in multiple choice? Let's hear what you guys have on that. And then if you are, yes, go ahead and if you guys are on Zoom and you have the most updated version, you would have just got an invitation to join the Slido. We'll be doing some polls during this class as well. So go ahead and accept that invite. All right, how to find the real rule. Yes, I like that, Benjamin. I've always studied alone and I need guidance, as in someone to tell me what I'm doing wrong. Okay. Peeling back the layers. Yes. And Duca said the battle between choosing the most accurate answer and the relatively correct answer. That is definitely something that we're going to address today. So, all right. Thank you for doing a little icebreaker and giving people some time to come into today's session. Again, this is the Legally Fit multiple choice session. As we go through this, for those that are new to Legally Fit, if at any time you have questions, please feel free to raise your digital hand. I'll call on you. We don't like to do too much of a, open invitation to speak. Raise your hand. I'll call on you if you have any questions. And yes, today we're doing multiple choice. Um, First and foremost, I'm going to say this throughout the session today. Okay. And this is if you take away anything from today's session, right? The main thing to take away, which is when it comes to the multiple choice, no system, no pass. Okay. No system, no pass. What we're going to get away from, right, if we haven't already, is going through multiple choice questions in a way where we are essentially just winging it, right? Which is more common than what you think. A lot of us in here probably winged it for the recent bar exam for some or all of the questions. Winging it is simply going into a question, right? Reading it. After reading it, going into the answer choices and then looking for the answer choice that sounds the best, right? That structure is not structured enough. It doesn't have a system behind it to really give you a habit that will lead you to the right answer. And the reason why that system is very challenging to use, or it's not a system that's good of, again, just reading the question and going into the answer choices, is to Nduka's point, is that the bar is not creating friendly multiple choice questions, right? This is not, most of these questions aren't something as simple as, what are the three elements of an offer? Pick the three, right? These are not questions that are, if you, remotely did the work, it should be easy to answer. These are designed to be tricky. These are designed for there to be two good sounding answers, and you have to then choose between the two. So we're going to talk about how we avoid that. And again, everything about my way of going through multiple choice questions, what I preach to my students, and I'm going to preach to you all today, is that you have to be a creature of habit. Okay. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and start to unpack what those habits look like. To get us started, let me join Zoom on the iPad. I want you all to start off by doing a question. Okay. All right. We're going to start off with question 7 here. All right. So question 7 is right there. Zoom in a little bit more, as much as we can. Okay, I think that'll do it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, allow you guys on Slido to answer. So go ahead and read this question, and then I want you to select the answer choice that you think is best. So let me give you all the ability to do that. Okay, apps. Okay. So go ahead and read number 7. Put your answer in the choices.
DeAndre, will you put the link in for those that came in after, please?
Yes. All right, there's the link. Okay, we got 4 votes in. We'll give it a moment just for a little bit longer to get those votes in, and then we'll get started. Okay, let's start to discuss here. So first off, I want to get an idea of how you went through this question. All right. Can I get a volunteer, somebody to walk through with me on how they went through this question? And essentially what I'm looking for is just to break down the steps that we took. Yeah, Sammy.
Okay, I can talk really quick. So I first read what the question is asking me at the very end, and then that way I can kind of decide which answer would be best for me, or what the all the question is. And then I read the question. I actually read it twice, and then I chose between those.
Okay. So, and what answer choice did you come to?
I came to D.
Okay, D. So let's now go through these steps together, Sammy, and I'm going to kind of walk you through the summary of what my system is, and we're going to see the differences. Okay.
Okay.
So the first thing that we want to do, everybody, right, is we want to skim the answer choices to ground us. First thing we want to do is just know what subject we're dealing with. And clearly, Sammy, we're dealing with what subject?
Con law.
Con law. Then we want to see if there's any type of hint that we can get as far as what topic we're dealing with. So we skim the answer choices here. And does any one particular topic jump out more than the other here?
What do you mean?
So yeah, does anything jump out to you as far as an area of law that like likely is going to be the focus of this question? And
So from the fact pattern, yes, but just from the answers alone, no.
yeah, just from the answer choices, no. So Sammy, that's a big part of my system is like, are the answer choices using certain terminology, right? That is tipping its
Right.
hat as to what the area of focus is. And here you just have these different, concepts or principles within con law, but there's not even any redundancy within one, right? You have due process, you have equal protection, you have commerce clause, and you have privileges and immunities. Those are just all separate doctrines, right? But if right, we kept on seeing something, right, in another class, right, where it was like, oh, it has to be a foreseeable consequence, right? Or it has to be a foreseeable result. And we see like 3 different answer choices that say foreseeable result, and it's a torts question. It's like, oh, this might be a causation issue, right? So again, you're looking for any tips, and we'll try the next question to see if we get a little bit more. But yeah, that's always a powerful tool is to ground us. But here, it doesn't help too much. All good. Let's jump into the question. All right. So we're going to practice, Sammy, what we did yesterday, which is reading this question out loud. And again, everybody, reading comprehension is the silent killer for bar students. You have to be able to comprehend the facts quickly and really connect with what's going on. In an effort to relieve serious and persistent unemployment in an industrialized state, its legislature enacted a statute requiring every business with annual sales in the state of over $1 million to purchase goods and or services in the state equal in value to at least half of the annual sales in the state of the business. Now, Sammy, this is a fact pattern and a sentence worth reading twice. It's a very long sentence and there's a lot in it. What can you, again, take away from a reading comprehension? The very first clause in this sentence, I think, is important to identify as what?
As the commerce clause.
I don't want to identify the first part. This is reading
Oh.
comprehension, not necessarily
Oh.
ing, right? And we talked
Oh,
about this.
like what are the fact patterns? I'm sorry, I guess I understood your question incorrectly.
Yeah.
So you mean what I'm getting from the actual the sentence?
So if we were to focus on just this portion right here, what are they telling us? What is the importance of this right here?
State rights and liberties.
Yeah.
So remember, everybody, another clean takeaway from today's session. Very simple. Every single time you are doing a con law question, essay, or multiple choice, and you're dealing with a law that was passed, right? You always want to know why the government is doing it. What is the government purpose,
The
right?
rationale.
You always, yeah. And again, for me, Gamil, if you'd like to speak, raise your hand for me.
Oh,
So
sure.
no worries. you always want to know the government purpose, okay? So government purpose here is to relieve serious and persistent unemployment in an industrialized state. And to summarize that, the government purpose is to, lower unemployment, right? That's how you want to summarize that for your purposes. All right. Just out of curiosity, Sammy, really quickly, the government purpose of lowering unemployment, does that likely rise to something that amounts to a compelling government interest?
Yes, it does.
Ooh, we're going to lean towards no, right? Remember,
No.
compelling government interest is a short list, everybody. Compelling government interest is things like public health, public safety, national security, right? And when you look at the ones that meet compelling government interest, is employment going to rise to that level? No. Is it important? Yeah. So maybe it can meet something along the lines of an important government interest, and definitely a legitimate one for rational basis review. But yeah, just really quickly, we know that this is not going to meet the highest level of scrutiny. Maybe it'll meet the other ones. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, everybody, these are again just half of doing well in multiple choice, half of doing well in essays is that we have to be airtight with the law, the patterns, and things like that. So that's something that for me, Sammy, the first line, that's all that's going on in my brain. It's like in effort to relieve, as soon as I see in an effort, and I know it's a con law problem, I'm immediately thinking government purpose. Okay, what is the government purpose? To relieve serious and persistent unemployment in an industrialized state. Okay, cool. They want to lower unemployment. Got it. And that's not necessarily compelling. We'll see, what framework I apply, but that's all my information. Go ahead.
Okay, I guess like my problem area too with multiple choice is that I tend to just overthink and like kind of get rushed with things. Because when I
Yeah.
see like government interest right away, I start thinking like the 10th Amendment and like other things, and then I feel like sometimes I do try to do my own. Like I answer my question, I just pick my answer choice based on like my own bias of what I believe it is, or what my
So
mind
yeah.
just
So hopefully what I'm going to show you as we continue through this is how to just stay within the bumper lanes of the question. So let's continue. So
Okay.
in an effort to relieve serious and persistent unemployment, we got that whole line. And then it says what they did, right? Then we have now the statute. It enacted a statute requiring every business with annual sales in the state of over $1 million to purchase goods and or services in the state equal in value to at least half of the annual sales in the state of the business. Again, this requires reading comprehension. Can you put in your own words, Sammy, what essentially this law is requiring of who and what are they requiring?
So any business that makes over $1 million is required to get their supplies or put back into local businesses.
Yeah. If you're gonna do business in our state and make a lot of money, right? Which in this case is over $1 million, you're gonna have to, whatever you made, spend at least half of that buying things within the state. All right. So what we have here is a state passing a law that is designed to boost their revenue, clearly, right, and address this unemployment. Now, this alone should now start to be a helpful situation to trigger for us what doctrine we're going to likely use to see if this is constitutional or not. So, Sammy, and let's go ahead. First off, does anything come to mind immediately as to what doctrine would be the best bet here?
No, not anymore. I was confident in the beginning, and now I'm not.
Yeah. So let's see if anybody can help us out in the chat. So which doctrine, specific doctrine, is triggered for scenarios like this, where a state is passing a law that's going to address their state, possibly at the risk of harming other states? Yes. All right. I'm seeing some commerce, but I need specifics. It's not Commerce Clause, but more specifically, it's what?
Oh, the interstate commerce clause?
Nope, that's not going to be it.
Oh.
As Angel said, the dormant commerce clause. Okay, so dormant commerce clause is part of the commerce clause, but we have to go to the right section of our rules. So, Sammy, this, everybody, is actually step number one. If you cannot reverse engineer a question to pinpoint the exact topic that's being tested, you're already at a disadvantage going into the answer choices. So you have to know the law well enough. You have to know the triggers well enough, the patterns well enough, right? So that as soon as you read something like this, you know, all right, this is dormant commerce clause. So then what do, right? I want you to actually go to your rule and go to dormant commerce clause and run through the analysis to see what the outcome will be. We're not going to go to the answer choices. We're going to go to the rule. All right. Here's our rule for dormant commerce clause. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but here's the summary. In order to survive a dormant commerce clause violation claim, right, you have to assess whether the government has to get over two hurdles. Number one, whether there was discrimination against out-of-staters, and two, whether it was unduly burdensome on interstate commerce. So the first question is, does this discriminate against out-of-staters? Okay. Does this discriminate against out-of-staters? And Sammy, what's the question? What's the answer there? Does this discriminate against out-of-staters?
No, because you can choose to do business anywhere.
So the way you want to look at this is that this is discriminating against out-of-staters. Going back to our question here, right? If you're requiring every business that's spending $500,000 to purchase goods or services now in this state alone, in theory, now you are taking away that spending money from other states. Do we see that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I do now, but originally I didn't.
And that's totally fine, right? Because as long as you see it now, that's all that matters, right? Like there's nothing wrong with getting questions wrong, but the thing is you don't want to get questions wrong again. So the idea is that you go through this, okay, we learn it. So yes, this likely is discriminating against out-of-staters. All right. You go through the rest of your analysis and you now, since it is discriminating against out-of-staters, you ask yourself, is this state law necessary to achieve an important non-economic government interest? So again, everybody, you do your analysis and you have to be able to do it quickly. The government interest at hand here is to lower unemployment. Is that going to be deemed important? I'm not going to waste my time arguing that it's not. I think here you can argue that sure, that this is considered an important government interest. But it also says that this has to be necessary, meaning that it was the least discriminatory method for doing so. And here you could come up with a million other ways to fix unemployment that doesn't require something like this. So can somebody give me an example in the chat, or you could raise your hand, of simply another way to fix unemployment without a way of discriminating against out-of-staters? This is, if this was an essay, yeah, Lewis said a job fair. Adding more jobs, right? Exactly. Creating more opportunities for jobs. Those would be two good ideas of something just to simply put in there to do this. But what they're doing is forcing other people to buy stuff in the state, right? And if we go to our rule and our materials and our legally fit outlines, what we see is right here. Sammy, it says, keep in mind, let me go to the highlighter. Keep in mind that this element usually fails if the law is a product of economic protectionism. What the heck is economic protectionism? Economic protectionism occurs when a state passes a law that protects their institutions or residents from economic competition. So when you're doing something for the benefit of your economy, for your residents, at the cost of somebody else, and that's truly what you're getting at with your law, that is a classic scenario for violating this prong of dormant commerce clause. So Sammy, would you say that we're dealing with economic protectionism here?
Yes.
Absolutely, right? The state is literally passing a law to protect itself, to protect its residents at the cost of other people. So yeah, this is already right there. You can more or less stop and align with they're not going to get over hurdle number one. Right. And so this is going to violate the Dormant Commerce Clause. Now, fortunately for us, this is not something that's like giving you a whole bunch of options within Dormant Commerce Clause. And so now you simply have spotted the right issue. And now you need to go into the answer choices, right? And figure out which one best matches and which one is going to be the right answer now.
It's gonna be number C or
Yes.
letter C.
Letter
Yes.
C, exactly, right? So C is the correct answer. And I'm going to go ahead and disclose the results. So we had 21% of us chose B, 7% of us chose D. Now, all that to be said, this was a great question to start with because it was a little bit on the simpler side because it sometimes you have to even then find the best answer choice, right? Because then you could have had something that said, oh, yes, because this violates the Dormant Commerce Clause. Yes, because this violates the Dormant Commerce Clause on the basis that there was economic protectionism. That second choice would be the better one because that is really at the heart of what drives the answer. So that is why you want to do this full analysis, everybody, because when you're stuck between two good-looking answers, if you did the analysis yourself, you should see what is really driving the outcome. And if you can do that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to pick the better answer out of the two that sound good. All right, let's see if we can see that in the next question that we do. But before we move on, remember, knowing the law is half the battle. In this case, if you weren't able to reverse engineer the question to realize this is actually a trigger for Dormant Commerce Clause, then right out the gate, you're off on the wrong foot.
No, I
So
appreciate it, Andre. Thank you.
you're welcome. And then Sammy, before we move on from this, and it's very important, right? Because this next step of what I'm going to talk about is how you actually get better in bar prep and how you get better with multiple choice. You have to generalize the fact pattern and what just took place in different ways so that you know what to look for the next time quickly and you can navigate the question. So I want you to give an attempt at that, Sammy, and then I'll jump in and help if needed. But how would you walk away from this question with some type of statement or statements for you that if you got something similar, you would know what to do?
That when a state enacts a law that, how would I articulate this? Just like treating it like if I was just writing in my notes, I would just put like when a state enacts a law that impacts economic welfare on other states, that enacts the dormant clause. The dormant,
Okay.
the dormant, sorry, the dormant doctrine of the Commerce Clause.
Yes. So that's a great example of what extracting a pattern looks like, Sammy. And you have to do this every single question you do. My version of it, I would do two things. Number one, for the issue spotting perspective, I'm like, okay, whenever a state is passing a law that is negatively impacting out-of-staters, okay, I'm going to consider Dormant Commerce Clause. And
Okay,
then,
so you know, like yours better too, because then it does include those fact patterns that when you see that in there, it does trigger your brain to think more.
exactly. You have to make it general enough where you get out of like some of the specific detail that when you get to other fact patterns, it still hits that general, right, trigger that we just created. Exactly. And then I would add on to that something to, right, digest and feel confident moving forward is that whenever states, again, are engaging in economic protectionism, meaning whenever states are passing laws that benefit their economics or their residents' economics at the cost of other people, chances are that law is going to be unconstitutional. You want to have a natural hesitation to find that constitutional because that's a big no-no based off of our rules. So now in my head, whenever I see that or something similar, I know what to look out for. Make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Perfect. All right. So before I go to Yugan and before we move on from this question, everybody, this was the first question of showing you a system, right? Step number one is skim the answer choices and see what looks good or what can I deduce is the focus of this question. Here, that didn't help too much. Sometimes that happens. The second thing to do is strong reading comprehension, right? Again, the very first line, I'm summarizing like, oh, this is the government's purpose. Oh, the next part is the statute. Oh, basically, if you make a lot of money in this state, they want you to then spend money in this state, and they want you to spend half of what you made. You had to reword that in your own words to just truly get what was going on. Then you had to figure out what area of law is this scenario triggering. Once you did that, right, then you have to go to your rule. So a lot of times people don't do that. And in practice, I highly recommend that a good chunk of your questions are done open book, because even when we have the rule in front of us, a lot of times we still might not get the right answer. So let's take out the memorization aspect while we're still trying to learn by going to look up our rule. Then you do a full analysis yourself to determine the outcome, right? And then you go into the answer choices and find the best matching answer. All right, so let's see if we can put that into practice. But first, we'll take a question from Yugon.
Hi, it's not a question. I just wanted to know, so the whole process that we just did, would that be faster when the more practice questions we do? Because I know, like, for the exam, we only had like 1 minute for one question, right? So this whole
Yes.
process of going to each aspect and somewhat getting confidence in each answer, would that just be expedited the more practice you do, or the more black letter you know? Or is it a combination of both?
Yes. So it's the idea is that when you extract patterns, Yugon, the idea is that when you start to then see other fact patterns that match those patterns, you then navigate them quickly. So think of this like anything else in life of a new habit or skill. When you're learning the fundamentals, when you're seeing it for the first time, it takes a ginger process of being able to like receive it and download it. But if you do so in a way where you're really processing it, when you then see something that's similar, you should be able to go through it extremely fast. And so that's the whole goal, right? Is that we spend our 600 to 650 hours in bar prep leading up to the exam of getting as many patterns downloaded and cataloged, as many scenarios cataloged. So when you get to the exam, at least 70% of what you see is a version of what you've already seen. So you're going through it much faster. And then about 30%, because of the bar, the way that it's structured, you're going to see stuff that you haven't seen before. But that should be about 30% or less. And then it's those questions that you can slow down for, because it's like, all right, I have to really think through this logically. I've never seen this before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Perfect. But yes, for example, this question for me, I would say I could do this question, and you all, after going through again this steps, after learning it and really digesting patterns, you should be able to do a question like this one, number 7, in literally 45 seconds, right? You should be able to read this and immediately see, oh, this is classic economic protectionism. This is dormant commerce clause, and this is going to be shut down. And that's an immediate, again, you have very simple answer choices here on top of that. So you want to immediately choose C, and this would be an answer that you would want to do very quickly. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and do number 8. Yugon, do you mind being the volunteer for number 8?
Sure. Can
All
I?
right, let's give it a shot. So
Awesome.
let's see if we remember the steps. What was step number 1?
If I'm right, read the first call of the question and sort of comprehend it. If I'm wrong.
So step number 1 is
Oh, sorry. Read the answers. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. To skim the answer choices to see if there's any word choices that take you to a particular doctrine. So just yell out some of the buzzwords that you're seeing as you skim these answer choices.
There's market participant. If I'm right, that is again dormant commerce clause exception. If I'm right. So there's again con law, and I guess it's talking some part of commerce law, commerce clause again. And I'm guessing the the 3 scrutinies will be included as well, looking at the last answer, if
The
I'm
3. Yeah. What was that last part that you said? The last.
the 3 scrutinies, looking at the last answer, it seems like
Oh,
have to
the 3
analyze it.
scrutinies. Yeah. So you caught the market participant one. That was really good. And here's how my eyes would work. I see market participant, which is a buzzword for dormant commerce clause. We all simply just need to know that as one of the exceptions. I also see discriminated against interstate commerce, which is the whole concept of dormant commerce clause. I'm seeing interstate here again. And this is where I stop, Yugan. Like I spend 5 to 10 seconds of just, do I see enough buzzwords to maybe tip me off to what's here? So this is a great example of when it does work. And it's like, already this looks like a dormant commerce clause problem. You don't want to be so fixed, right? Because sometimes we're wrong, or again, just like before, sometimes the question doesn't even give it to us, but at least we have an idea and we want to kind of keep that in the back of our head as we read the fact pattern. So let's go ahead, everybody, and try to read this one out loud. I'm going to start the Slido, but let's not have you do this one on your own first. Let's actually go through this one together. So let's do it one sentence at a time. A state owned a large natural gas field and took bids for its exploitation. All right, really quickly, in other words, and just simplified your own words, Yugan, what is that saying?
The state owned like a government land, which was a natural gas field, and they were taking bids for, sort of take control of it or exploit it, if I'm right.
And what does exploitation mean? Like, let's just make it tangible. Like, if I have a large gas field and I'm taking bids for its exploitation, like, what does that, just make that tangible? What does that mean?
To sort of sell it to somebody who is the highest bidder so that they could use it in their own way, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Yeah. So basically, I have a large gas field, a large land that has gas up under it, and I'm looking for the highest bidder for who wants to pay me to come and take the oil out, right? And take the gas out. So there we go. That's making that tangible. Okay, got that in mind. And then now it says the highest bid came from an interstate pipeline company that distributed natural gas to providers throughout the country. All right, the highest bid came from a particular company, an interstate pipeline company, and it distributed gas to the nation. Okay, fair enough. A local gas company submitted the next highest bid. So I even like to diagram sometimes. So it's like I have state, and then I have the interstate pipeline company, and then I have the local gas company submitted the next highest bid, which included the commitment that it would pass along to local customers any savings if it was awarded the contract. Okay, so just again, in summary, in your own words, what's going on here, Yugan?
So you want me to dissect the local gas company part, right?
Yeah, that sentence of just in your own words, like let's make that tangible.
What I'm understanding, the government is trying to get the bidders, and then they have this highest bidder from interstate, which is example different state, and then there's another bidder from the same state who also gave a bid that is as much as high but not the highest as the outer state bidder. But the government sort of want to give the contract to the local bidder because of the local bidder saying that they will give local customers any savings if they were awarded the
Exactly. And in my own words, Yugan, the way I would say this is that you have one, high, like the highest bid from this interstate company, and you have a local company who seemingly knows they're not having the highest bid, but they're coming with this extra negotiation piece, right? Which is, if you accept this, we'll pass along any savings to local customers. And that could be, right, of a benefit to the state, because if you're giving our people a deal, that's just more money in the state. Like, that sounds pretty good. So we want to look at that, right? So they would pass along any savings it would to award to the local customers if they got the contract. It says the state awarded the contract to the local company. So they chose the non-highest bid, but the one that had the again, the extra little negotiation piece to it. And then it says that the interstate company sued to overturn this decision, right? This is, again, essentially a question of like constitutionality, right? Even though there's not a law in place, you can also use these doctrines to scrutinize government conduct. So we treat that as the same. Even though we don't have a law, we're still using the same concepts to scrutinize their conduct, all right? And so, in fact, which area of law is this triggering?
Isn't it again dormant commerce clause?
Okay, it is in fact dormant commerce clause. And so now what we're going to do is go back to our rule and work through this. So this has a pretty big framework. Before we look at the entire thing of it, does this question seem to, like, again, from a pattern maybe you've seen before, can you at all fast track to the particular rule that seems to be at focus here?
If I may, from what I remember from studying, it sort of goes towards the exception because obviously there's discrimination, but then if they can't pass a scrutiny, from what I remember, we go to the three exceptions. And
Right.
since the government is engaged in actually selling this, the government in itself is a market participant. So that's
Yes.
what it goes to.
So here we go, right? You have to follow these two hurdles. And the first one is discrimination against out-of-staters. And you have to meet this scrutiny test. But you don't have to meet the scrutiny test if one of the exceptions. So let's just put the scrutiny test on pause because it looks like a exception does apply. And we get down to the market participant. It says a state may discriminate against out-of-staters when the state law allows the state to act as a buyer or seller in the market regarding buying. This exception applies if the law is regulating, and we won't worry about that because we're not dealing with buying here, we're dealing with selling. So if this was you selling your land to two different companies, could you choose to go with the lower bid that, let's say, benefited your family if you wanted to?
Personally, yes.
Yeah, personally, you can. That's what the market participant exception is saying, that when the government is essentially just acting as a business, right? They can be a market participant and operate in that capacity as well. So since what they're doing is that, like, they have their own asset, which is this gas field, they get the freedom, just like you would, to make your own decisions on who you want to sell that to, right? For their own, selfish reasons. So here, when you're looking at the fact pattern, and again, it's choosing to sell it to this company with not the highest bid, but has this other incentive that they like, the market participants exception says they're allowed to do that. So again, we had to know the market participant rule. We had to know this was dormant commerce clause. The idea is that this does meet the first section of now this first hurdle, which is, does the law discriminate against out-of-staters? We met this exception down here. The second hurdle is you have to ask, does the state law unduly burden interstate commerce? Yugon, would you say that this conduct by the state unduly burdens interstate commerce?
No, it does not.
Yeah, there's nothing to say about this fact pattern in particular on how there's no facts given on how this is like gonna unduly burden other states, right? So yes, it doesn't seem to amount to one of those scenarios where that's the case. And so ultimately, do we look like we have a violation of dormant commerce clause?
I would say no.
It looks like we don't have a violation. And based off of our analysis, again, right, what was seemingly the rule that was the focus of our discussion?
The dormant commerce clause and the exception that
Yes.
market
So all
participants.
that to say, all you do now is go into the answer choices and find the answer choice that best matches. And what answer choice is that?
That would be B.
And B is the correct answer. Okay. B is the correct answer. So what does that automatically rule out? That automatically rules out, based off of us saying, right, should the interstate company prevail? With confidence, we're already saying that anything yes is out, right? Even though this one says, oh, the state discriminated against, like, you don't fall for the traps. Like, is that language consistent with, you know, the world of dormant commerce clause? Yes. But this is where everybody, like the ones that are not having a system and second guessing themselves, it's like, we have just done our analysis and we have determined that this does not violate dormant commerce clause. So therefore, the company no should not prevail. So anything yes has to be out. Then you look at these other two, if you just want to compare, it's the first one says no, because the state has a compelling interest in reducing the cost of gas for citizens. You gone like on its face, take away all the like system that I just gave you and the, you know, the law, like on its face, does that sound like a pretty good answer?
If I didn't memorize the black letter law, I would sort of pick that on the grounds that the local bidder saying that, oh, I will send all of my savings to the local customers. So I would have preferred, oh, that means the local government is looking out for their in-state citizens. So I would have picked that had I not known the exceptions and the analysis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you didn't know the exact rule that was, you know, the whole, like, that looks like a good answer. You know, the other thing that makes it look good, it's using language that we've seen before in common law. Oh yeah, I've seen compelling interest before. That's part of the scrutiny test. Like, that sounds good, right? Like, yeah, they are reducing, you know, so that's back to what we're saying, everybody, that like, you don't fall for those type of answer choices. When we just did our full analysis and realized this is a market participant exception, that was the driving force. Find the answer choice that represents that, and there it is. Okay, so Yugan, how do you feel now going through, you know, this second question after kind of getting again more familiar with this system?
I do believe that it felt a bit faster than before. I felt like last time I was like, oh, there's no way I could do that within 1 minute. But this felt a bit, well, there's more practice is much needed, but I felt much faster and clearer on second guessing myself. I think that was one of the big issues of, you know, finding like two accurate answers and not knowing what's the best. I think that's
Yes.
much this time.
So let me tell you two things. First off, let's do the pattern thing again that we did with Sammy. So what would be a pattern to, again, make this faster, right? Next time you saw something similar, how would you generalize this scenario to make it easier for the next time you do it?
From comprehending what you said and what you discussed with Sammy, I would looking for the answers actually helped. So I would look for the answers and look for terminology that sort of stands out for me.
Let me pause you there for a second and make it more clear on my question, my ask. My ask is take the fact pattern and generalize it so in a way where you're cataloging what took place. You know, so like basically when blank happens, this is going to require me to discuss blank rule, or when this happens, this is the outcome. Something like that that you take away with you as like some type of shorthand rule, shorthand, you know, summary that becomes part of your cataloged way to navigate these things faster in the future. You see what I'm asking?
Yeah. Sorry for not understanding before. What I would, from what I gather from this, is that as soon as I see the state involved in engaging in like selling or buying, I would go for thinking about the exceptions under Dormant Commerce Clause as market participant, and then that's what I understood, and that's what I would normally do
Good.
after listening to what you just said. Yeah, I don't know if it's accurate.
That is, and there's no right or wrong with extracting patterns. You just want it to be good, but you can put it in your own words, but that's good. The takeaway is that when the government is involving, you know, is getting involved in buying and selling just like a regular person would, and they're just affecting themselves, that's the market participant. So even if it discriminates against out-of-staters, it's okay, right? So when I see something else similar like that, I know the outcome, right? So when I say, Yugan, that California passes a new law that says all state schools must buy their dairy from California farmers. Uh-oh, that's discriminating against out-of-staters, right? That's a big market of California that's no longer buying dairy out of the state because all the state schools must buy their milk from California cows. Is that going to violate the Dormant Commerce Clause? Yes or no?
Yes, because that would have a significant impact on the interstate commerce.
Well, it's discriminating against out-of-staters, but is this the market participant exception?
Oh yeah, because they're engaging in selling their milk, I would say.
Well, but no, why are they? So one more time and see
Mhm.
if anybody can put it in the chat. The fact pattern says is that California passes a law that says that all state schools must buy their dairy from California cows. See if you can extract a pattern that's very similar to this pattern. What makes this the same? So we're not catching it, right? So this is exactly what I'm saying as far as catching patterns, everybody, on how we have to be able to see that. Yes, they are the buyer, but in this fact pattern, whose conduct are they controlling?
Their own state market.
They're controlling the conduct of themselves.
Yeah,
It said that the state is passing a law that all state schools are state schools, government entities, or private entities.
private entity.
Are state schools public entities or private entities?
Public entity.
Yes, that's state owned. So the state is saying we are controlling our own buying decisions. Yugon, if you decided today that you were only going to buy groceries from Hispanic grocery stores moving forward, are you allowed to do that?
Yeah, because it's only affecting me.
It's only affecting you, but can you force me to do that?
No.
Exactly. That's the market participant exception. In this case, is the California schools forcing other people to buy dairy from California farmers?
No, they can't.
No, because they're only regulating themselves. Hear how this changes. If it says California is forcing all schools in the state to buy their milk from California farmers, you see the difference?
Yeah.
I'm not getting that confidently.
Yeah,
So
no,
look,
I-
the difference is, right, when I say California is forcing all California schools, state schools, these are public entities. These are so that means they're government owned, right? That means California is just regulating their own behavior. But if you also regulate private is like me and you, we could decide we're going to open up a school, and now they're telling us that we have to also buy from California farmers. What if I don't want to? That is when it's no longer the market participant exception.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think I'm understanding it now.
Okay, so last time, and then we might just have to sit on it. The difference in the two analogies is if Yugon decides that he's going to only buy from Hispanic grocery stores, that's market participant. He's only controlling himself. But when Yugon says that everybody in this Zoom has to buy from buy from Hispanic grocery stores, that's when now you're controlling the behavior of other people. That's beyond market participant. That's not just you operating in the space. So in this case, California, if you are regulating only the California state schools, which are government entities, you are acting as a market participant. California can then decide, hey, like we decide we want to support our local farmers. Like California can decide to do that. But once they force private people to do it as well, that's not market participant anymore. That's you being the government and you're controlling other people's buying decisions. Yeah, you got.
So if a question asks, California regulated that all the business entities must purchase milk from their state, that would be a violation, right? Because
that would not. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
That would not be the market participant because that's not simply them regulating their buying and selling decisions.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. So the simple pattern here, that even though we have a completely different fact pattern than this gas one, what you have here is the government making a decision or a law that's only impacting their buying or selling desire, right? That's only impacting their buying or selling desire and not impacting the buying and selling desire of other people and of the public. That is your trigger. And that's how these two questions that I just gave, even though they're different circumstances, they have the same thread. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Thank you.
Good. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Let's do one more. But everybody, this is what I'm referring to as like how you improve and how you get better. So as we just saw, as Yugan is vulnerably going through this out loud with all of us. And so thank you, Yugan. And I know you're not the only one that is like trying to comprehend all of this, but that is what we have to do, is be able to go through questions, see the pattern, and then not get questions wrong that are similar to it. But that means when we get a question wrong that was similar, that means we did not soak up all of the value the first time of doing it. We didn't learn that lesson fully. And that, everybody, is where you start to see your multiple choice scores increase. When you can catalog all the mistakes, all the takeaways, all the patterns, so that when you see it the next time, right, it's better. So let's do one more. Let's go. Oh, here we go. All right. Let's go back to Lewis. Lewis, all right, let's go ahead and do number 9 together. Let's start to run through this, all right?
So skim through the answers.
First thing we're going to do is skim through the answer choices.
Looking for some good buzzwords, things popping out. So see, unconstitutional. So it says what? Federal statute, the next one. Conflict, federal statute, then constitutional, federal statute, supersedes. That might stick out. Come thinking supremacy or something supersedes it. And human habitations. So nothing crazy stick out, but human habitation might be something dealing with your rights, your fundamental rights. And then the supersede, maybe with supremacy. Everything else is kind of generic.
And what else do we use for supremacy? What else comes to mind there?
Supremacy clause, federalism.
It's not gonna be federalism. Anybody in the chat? Anybody else? You guys want to put something in there before we jump in? I do think there's something very specific that we should catch from these answer choices. Yeah, Benjamin just caught it for us. Preemption, right?
Preemption.
And preemption is in that same world of supremacy. But yeah, so you have a federal statute supersedes inconsistent state law. That should in and of itself trigger preemption, right? And then you also have, because it conflicts with the provisions of a federal statute, that's also language familiar with preemption. And so, yes, going into this, that's the first thing that we're thinking, right? Is this a preemption situation? All right, let's see if we even remember enough about preemption. Lewis, what must be present in a fact pattern for there to even be a preemption situation? At the cold hard facts, you need at least what, at the bare minimum?
A federal statute and a state statute.
Yeah, because that's the whole concept, is that we're trying to shoot down which one?
We're going to shoot down the state statutes.
We're trying to shoot down the state statute and say that the state statute in some way is preempted by the federal law, right? And hopefully remember our rules, and that there's actually multiple ways to preempt. There's field preemption, there's express preemption, and under express you have direct conflict, and impedes objective, right? So you have all these different ways of preemption. Hopefully we remember and know all of those. But again, everybody, look how we've already softly issue spotted, right? By just being A1 with our law and skimming these answer choices for buzzwords, right? So a very powerful tool. Congressional hearings determined that the use of mechanical power hammers is very dangerous to the persons using them and to the persons in the vicinity of the persons using them. In your own words, Lewis, what is that telling us?
That Congress is looking at regulating the mechanical hammers. They're saying that it's dangerous if you're using it or if you're nearby using it.
Okay, yeah, Congress is saying mechanical hammers are dangerous for the people using them and people nearby. Perfect. As a result, so what is this first sentence? We talked about this in question number 1. What do we label this as? Lewis?
Oh, that tell us what is the what the government is asking or why the government is doing something.
Close. Yes. Thank you, Ashley, in the chat. Remember, every con law question, trying to shoot down the law, you got to know the government interest. What is their purpose? Why are they doing it? Lewis, I'm going to be honest, everybody, this is the type of stuff that we're talking about, right? We just talked about this 10, 15, 20 minutes ago of every single con law question. First thing we got to do if we have a law is isolate and find why are they doing it, right? So remember that we're always trying to identify the government interests. And then look, what if that, you know what, was the red siren for me as far as how I just missed that when I saw this as a result. It's like they always put something like that after the government purpose, or most times, right? Like in response, or as a result, or to address this. So look for those signals as well. So now we have the law. It's a federal law. Congress enacted a statute prohibiting the use of mechanical power hammers on all construction projects in the United States. Okay. So really quickly, in our own words, Lewis, what did Congress do?
They outlaw using mechanical hammers, power hammers.
Yeah, so they went pretty drastic. Look, they dropped the hammer, pun intended, right? They said, just, we're not using these no more. Okay, sounds good. Subsequently, a study conducted by a private research firm concluded that nails driven by mechanical power hammers have a longer lasting joining power than hand-driven nails. All right, so go ahead and summarize that. What's going on here?
So there's a survey, and it's conflicting with the well, it's basically it's not conflicting. It's actually just proven that to use power hammers, there's a benefit over using hand-driven nails, which later on will be a conflict with Congress making it illegal.
Oh, hold on. Don't go too far. Look, we're already trying to get ahead of ourselves and do the analysis. Right now, we just on the comprehension. And I liked right before I stopped you, which is, okay, we just got a private research firm that wants to talk about the benefit that this does. And can you summarize again what that benefit is?
So using power-driven hammers have there's more powerful. It's longer lasting than to do hand-driven nails.
Exactly. So the benefit is that things stick together. You got to nail stuff to keep things connected, and it's saying, oh, they just last longer when it's mechanical power hammers instead of doing it by hand. Just really quickly, like seemingly we're kind of now getting into the point of balancing like why to use mechanical power hammers versus not, and which side is essentially winning at this point.
Well, to use is winning because it's longer lasting. It's better.
No, hell no. To not use is longer lasting nails more important than public.
Oh, danger. Correct.
Yeah,
danger in the vicinity.
come on.
Okay. Got it.
Right. So look, exactly, Ashley, it says hammers are very dangerous to the person who's using them and to the people in the vicinity. So there's danger involved, and are we going to trade that off for things to, like get innovative, find something else to make those stick longer than just by saying, all right, so, okay. After learning about this study, a city council enacted an amendment to its building safety code requiring the use of mechanical hammers in construction of all buildings intended for human habitation. So in your own way of sipping your tea and reading this fact pattern, what's going on here?
So now the city council, which would be the state, has enacted their own law requiring that you do use the power hammer, which is already restricted by Congress law.
Okay, so now we got the state law that's, going against the wishes of the federal government. Everybody, this may seem maybe silly. This may seem unnecessary. What I'm showing you right now, as far as reading comprehension, to me is a key part of success. To be able to comprehend the facts and like really see what's going on. That's how you cement the situations and the patterns, and then they become things that you remember when you really dive in that way, as opposed to just like reading words on a page looking for just the right answer and the answer choices. And so, yeah, to summarize this whole fact pattern, you got mechanical power hammers. They're dangerous. Congress says get rid of them everywhere. It's too dangerous for you and the people around you using them. Then some study comes out saying, well, mechanical hammer drills happen to make the nails last longer when you're binding things. All right, so that was enough for one city council to say, forget what federal government said. We're actually going to require you to use mechanical power hammers. All right. If this was an essay, the way that this typically then plays out is like Lewis is a construction worker and in the state, and he doesn't want to pay for a mechanical power hammer, but now he can't legally build without using it. So he wants to shoot the state law down as unconstitutional, right? Like, again, that's a natural way that they introduce the call of the question. But here, it's just asking you to get straight to it without it, which is fine. So again, without looking at the answer choices, see if we can just like, let's get off of this now completely. Without looking at the answer choices, we need to see if we can shoot this state law down. Based off of everything that we have already now said and then confirmed, what area of con law are we going to focus on, Lewis?
We're going to go to the, we'll go into supremacy or preemption.
Good. So let's
And
find
then-
preemption. Hold on. Here we go. All right. So then now we need to see which of these that we're dealing with. All right. Are we dealing with express preemption? Express preemption is when it says that if the law is regulating an area that a federal statute has expressly limited to federal regulation. So is there any language in the federal statute that they expressly preempted state law on this matter?
No.
No, there's no language. All it just says is that Congress enacted the statute that does this. It didn't say anything about, yes, and we expressly preempt. So that's a quick and easy no. So this one is out. Next, let's see if there's implied preemption. The first one is direct conflict. If the federal and state laws are mutually exclusive, right, meaning both can't exist, the federal law preempts state law. Mutually exclusive means it's a direct conflict and both laws cannot coexist. Is that the case here?
Yes, because the state is trying to require you that you must use something that the federal government has already said you cannot use. So
those two cannot coexist. One is saying you can't use it at all, and another one is saying you must use it. Those cannot coexist. That is a direct conflict. Good. All right. So the next you have impedes objective. You don't really even need to go too much further because impedes objective is essentially looked at as an alternative. Like when it's not a direct conflict. So it's like maybe these two can coexist, but this actually does get in the way of this federal government interest. You don't even need to rely on that because this is clearly a direct conflict. All right. So everybody, again, not only have we identified that it's preemption, we have identified which specific preemption rule is at play. It is in fact violated. So will the state law be deemed unconstitutional, Lewis?
yes, unconstitutional.
So when we go to our answer choices right now, we're looking for something that says what?
Unconstitutional, maybe the buzzword preemption, and direct because conflict, because direct conflict
yes.
of the federal.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we go back to our answer choices. Let me zoom in a little bit and go ahead and tell me which answer choice is the correct one.
So it will be B, unconstitutional because it conflicts with the provision of the federal statute.
There you go, B. And again, to be able to answer with confidence, look how, again, we found an answer choice that just literally matched our analysis. Again, everybody, look how easy it is when you're following those steps, right? But again, to kind of show you how when you don't do this, let's see if there's any other good sounding answer choices that if you had another system, you might have fallen for. So first off, again, these would automatically be out because it's saying it's constitutional and our analysis just told us it's not. But remember, Lewis, right? We're talking about, oh yeah, supremacy clause. Like this one has good buzzwords in it. Like, oh, it supersedes inconsistent state laws. Is this accurate? The federal statute does not expressly indicate. Is that an accurate statement?
No.
It says, because the federal statute does not expressly indicate that it supersedes.
Oh, yes, that's accurate. Because it's not,
Everybody.
it's
See?
not stating it.
Taking out this part right here, this is actually an accurate statement. But by saying that it's constitutional is wrong, because there's other ways to preempt something. Express is not the only way. So that's again where like they're giving you something that sounds really good, and part of it is actually accurate, but it has the wrong outcome. So again, this is how tricky it could be. But for me, I'm not even considering these or getting close to selecting them, because I just did an analysis that said, yes, excuse me, this is unconstitutional because of the direct conflict rule. And then B automatically is the right answer. And you avoid that whole dilemma. You see what I'm saying, Lewis?
Yes, getting out of the well.
Yeah, and you're making yourself like no longer vulnerable to the trickiness of the exam. But that's again, everybody, of why I'm telling you, you have to have a system. Because if you didn't do what we said and you just read this, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, preemption, and then you just start like reading these answer choices, like they all start to sound really good. It's like going into the grocery store when you're hungry, right? Like shit, everything look good, right? The peanut butter look good, the waffles look good, but it's like, no, like I need to know what I'm going in here to look for, get it, grab it, and I'm out, right? So the other unconstitutional because it was enacted subsequent to the federal statute. Again, like there's nothing in our rules that tell us of which one comes first. But if you don't know your rules and you're not confident in it, that could also look attractive. So yes, let's get away, everybody, from just selecting answer choices that look attractive, and let's take control of the question. Let's come up with our answer, right, before we go in there, so we know exactly what we're looking for. And again, as I've illustrated, to even get to this point of accurately being able to do so, you all have to know the black letter law. You got to know the rules. You got to know that this is triggering preemption. You have to know that there's express preemption, and then there's direct conflict and P's objective and field, and you got to be able to run through all three. In your practice, right? Don't be afraid. And I encourage you, until you have the rules memorized, until you have the black letter law down, you have to lean on your materials, because that's how you get better with it. Lewis, are you walking away from this session feeling more comfortable than you did before with dormant commerce clause, with preemption?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because
And
you
that's
hear the words,
because
but now you know how it's actually used in a real world scenario.
yeah. And the other reason is because we looked up the rules, right? We've been living in the outline. We've been looking at it and applying it. But when you do questions that's just going off of your idea of it that may be right or wrong, you don't get that opportunity. You rob yourself of that opportunity of cementing an accurate understanding. So again, that's just to help people, rewire their brain, who feel like using their outline while doing questions is cheating. No, it's not cheating, but you're focusing on not memorization, but rather improvement. You're focusing on being able to issue spot the law. You're focusing on being able to see the rule and apply the rule, which is actually pushing you forward. Okay. So that is today's workshop. Any questions before we start to wrap up with our main takeaways? Any questions before we start to wrap up with our main takeaways? Yeah, Lewis.
So I was going to say, I like the open book concept. So what you're balancing is saying that you're aiming to get more right than to get more done. Because naturally, at least for me, when I got to open the book or look at the outline, it slows me down. And that's one of the habits I'm trying to break, especially when you're using like those different apps and stuff like Adaptabar. You kind of just zoom through it, and you read it, whether you got it right or wrong, and then you read the explanation, but then you zoom through it. And I think I mentioned this to you before. I felt when I was taking the bar myself that I'm so used to getting immediate feedback that I was able to self-correct myself or encourage myself. Okay, you got this right. So the next problem you can go. But when you're taking the bar, you don't know if you got it right or wrong. So you don't know. It's like, am I thinking of this law in the wrong way? And then I answer another question because I have this wrong thought. So it really discouraged me. But I do like the fact now you like just slow down and just have my outlines. And as I'm getting them, I'll get them right. And then, it's
Yeah.
helping me learn too at the same time.
Here's a quick for you, Gon, for you, Lewis, and for anybody else that's kind of struggling with the concept of moving slower. I'm gonna balance it out because it has to be balanced. But I want to quick little exercise. Who's the fastest person in the world? The last fastest person in the world that you remember, Lewis?
Michael Johnson.
Michael Jackson.
Johnson.
Oh, I said
Gold shoes. Gold shoes.
Yes, Michael Johnson. Robert said Usain Bolt. That's actually what I was thinking about. Usain Bolt. If we got any Gen Zers in here, they might say Speed, the streamer. But let's go with Michael Johnson. Lewis, before Michael Johnson can run faster than anybody in the world, he had to do what?
He had to train.
And like he had to learn how to crawl. Then he had to learn how to walk. Then he had to learn how to jog. Then he had to learn how to run. And then he had to learn how to run faster, right? So the whole concept is in anything in life that you want to be faster and better at, you don't just wake up fast. You wake up and you practice the fundamentals and you become a master of it. And then once you're a master, then you move with speed. So we want to skip that step as bar students, right? We just want to go straight to like, yep, I could do these questions in 2 minutes. But in order to do that, you got to know the law so well, and you got to know the pattern so well that you can accurately move that fast. So if you keep trying to move fast before you're capable, we've seen that in everything in real life. If you try to move too fast before you're ready, what happens, Lewis?
You trip, fall.
Yeah, you don't know how to do it. You trip, you fall, right? Like you don't get to where you're trying to go to because you're rushing. You don't have the proper fundamentals, the proper habits. So yeah, does that paint the picture for what I'm trying to explain on the importance of
Absolutely.
going slow? Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Now, the last thing that I will say on that, Lewis, is that like on the other end of the spectrum, you do have people that are going too slow, right? Like, okay, yeah, I spent, all day doing 10 multiple choice questions. All right, we also have to like move at a pace to get exposure to enough fact patterns to get the value there. So you do want to find that line between quality and quantity. You don't want to do 5,000 multiple choice questions fast. And the value of that is as if you did 5 because you didn't take anything from it. But you also don't want to only do 100 questions with this like super slow, intentional, approach where that you don't have enough exposure to more fact patterns. So that's the lesson. Thanks for sharing. Ashley, you had your hand, and then I can't remember who else it was.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, do you believe like the best way to learn the black letter law is like going through the multiple choice questions? Because I took the bar in July and I didn't pass, obviously, because I'm here. But and so like I think my strategy with MBEs was like, yeah, like, open book concept, which is something that you advised me to do. But I don't feel like I ever learned enough of the black letter law going through that. Like I think I did open book too long as like a crutch. And then so like when it finally came down to it, like, yeah, when I was going through the program, I was doing well with like, with like writing essays and answering multiple choice, but that's because I had my notes right there basically. But like when it came down to it, I just didn't feel like I had like a strong enough grasp. And so I was like, man, should I have done like flashcards, or is there another way to like when
Yeah.
like I don't know, like I felt like it became a crutch for me, like the open book.
Yeah.
I never like transitioned away from it.
And that's the thing. So I'm focusing in right now in this call on it because most people don't use open book. But the reality is that once you start having things memorized, you have to let go of the crutch, right? Same way in our analogy of like, once you are walking, right, without anything, well, you got to stop walking. And now we have to jog, right? And that's going to be a challenge, but then you keep doing that till you get it. So yeah, like if I'm doing a question, for example, and I've done now, 100 con law questions, and I see that it's preemption, and I do feel confident that I remember the entire rule, well, I'm not going to go look, I'm not going to use my outline. I've seen this before. I'm confident. I feel it. I'm confident. I remember the rule. So I'm going to run through it internally. And then that is when you start to like, that's how you wean off, is that like you do a set for a subject and then you pick and choose when you use your outline, right? Like I've already done, again, a handful, but it's like when I come across a law that I know, those are the ones that I'm gonna try to go off my memory. But if I know I don't know this rule, I'm definitely not going to just like, again, shoot from the hip and lose my opportunity to, again, better understand it. So I'm gonna go back to my outline. And that's the middle process. And after you do that long enough, Ashley, then you get to the point where, all right, for con law, I'm doing full sets of no outline, no use, and I'm doing them timed, and I'm doing test conditions, and then I'm doing that type of practice as well. So your phases are when you start off in the beginning of a subject, every question you do have your outline. And then once you've done a good amount, right, you got some under your belt, then you get to the middle phase, which is you pick and choose when you use your outline based off of your comfort with the rule at hand. And then the final phase is, all right, I'm completely ditching it and I'm doing ample practice with no outline at all. Yeah. And then the last thing that I'll say is that, at least for my students, right, like that's one thing that we specialize in is breaking down the law. So we have really good videos and really good outlines that, outside of just doing practice questions, are actually breaking these concepts down to a very like layman, everyday understanding, kind of like the same way we're doing with these fact patterns. You want to understand the law in a way that it's like, you're not just memorizing words on a page or like, okay, this is what it is, but like you want to truly get these concepts. And so that's also something to look into, is the use of our full program, or even just the use of our outlines and our materials and videos from that perspective, to just better understand the law. Because a lot of us, right, can just game this to like, okay, like, all right, dormant commerce clause, like I know it's triggered, but like, do you really know what the dormant commerce clause is? That's important as well. Okay, and then I saw Erica's hand as well.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I raised my hand just to say thank you so much. Like after this session, I knew that like I know the rule, but like the way you explained like how to apply the rule on the situation, like now I feel like all the knowledge that I had in my brain, like every single topic, every single rule is in there, like in a proper like drawer right now. You know what I mean? So like now I feel like I know like how to like jot down the rule and like how to apply it and like what the steps, and I would always start reading the call question first and then go to the fact pattern and then like read the answers and choose the best. And I would always be like, oh my god, like I don't know which one to choose because these two look very, you know, like similar. But like right now I know that like it's very easy when you just read quickly the answers, and like as you did, like just try to find the literally the topic of the con law, for example, and like for sure you know that it is about the topic, and like all the rules of that topic specific, it just comes to your brain quickly.
Yes.
And
Love
thank you
it.
so much. Thank
You're
you.
so welcome, Erica. Like, I want to follow that up, Erica, with, I want, again, remember what I said in the beginning, right? No system equals no pass. And right, we talked about what that system is. And I want to give you another takeaway with this, everybody. And it's that, like, my approach to bar and what I try to preach to you all is that I am like a walking IRAC, right? Like, I am not, you don't want to think of the bar as something in which you learn all of this law, you study all of this law, and then you just like think through scenarios, right? You just like talk about the law and use it to give answers. Like, that's not what I do. I don't use my knowledge of the law to think creatively. I don't use my knowledge of the law to just like, yeah, do that. I use my knowledge of the law every single time to be in a structured IRAC mindset. All we did on these multiple choice questions is identify the issue. What is the rule being tested? Go to my rule. We went to our outline. We went to our rule. We did our analysis. We came up with our conclusion, and then we just simply found the answer choice that worked best. On an essay, either the issues are given to you or you have to spot them yourself. You remember your rule, you thoroughly analyze it, and you have to do enough practice to know what that thorough analysis looks like. So I'm not relying on just like, oh, I hope this is enough. No, like, how have I done this in the past? How do they typically want you to analyze this particular element? There is data for that. I'm not being creative in the moment. Everything is based off of past. Everything is based off of IRAC and structure. So yeah, that is like my North Star. If you give me, again, a brand new multiple choice question, doesn't matter what subject it is, I'm going to skim the answer choices. Can I figure out what law this is? Okay, maybe not yet. Let me see the fact pattern. Oh, okay, I got the law. What's my rule? Apply it. There's a conclusion, right? And are we wrong sometimes in our application? Yes, but that is okay. There's nothing wrong with getting questions wrong because you didn't apply it correctly. But there is something wrong for getting the same type of questions wrong a second time. And that's again why one of the big takeaways from today should be you have to learn from your mistakes. If you make the same mistakes twice, you cannot be mad at anybody else except for yourself. You didn't take away whatever that learning lesson was the first time you did it. Awesome. 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 Any one last person want to give just their takeaway for anything that wasn't mentioned before we wrap up? Any takeaways? One last takeaway before we wrap up. We might have touched on it all. Vivian, are you there? I'm gonna call on Vivian. I want to hear from Vivian.
Hi there. No, I loved everything. I'm taking down so many notes. I think it's just getting comfortable slowing down now so that you can get faster later during the exam. And just to give you confidence doing these questions.
Yes. So last little 2 cents on that, based off of what we're saying, everybody learn on how to move with confidence, even if you might be wrong, but go through your steps and confidently choose answers just to get out of that habit of second guessing yourself. Because in practice, it's okay to confidently choose an answer and it's wrong, and then just confidently learn why you were wrong, but keep moving with confidence and get out of that habit of always like, oh, I hope it's this one. I hope I'm right. I hope. No, don't hope. Confidently choose and either confidently be right or confidently be wrong and learn. All right, guys. Well, I'll be here and just giving you tidbits and lessons all day, but we cannot build the Great Wall of China in one night. So that'll conclude today's session on lessons and how to approach multiple choice. This does conclude the current series of breaking down the bar. We do want to continue to have workshops for you all on things you can take advantage of that's free. If any of you all are interested, we start our bar prep program, our 10-week course that comes with, guidance on our strategy for essay, MBE, and PT. It comes with all of our lecture videos and outlines and cheat sheets and folder systems for understanding the law and memorizing it. So if you're interested in joining our program, look out for an email from Monique with the details on how to sign up. And yes, of course, we would love to have you. But otherwise, good luck studying for whichever exam you will be taking next. And definitely know we're rooting for you. All right.
Reminder that today is the last day for the special that we offered for these 3 events.
Great reminder. So if you didn't see it at Didn't Pass Now What, or didn't see it in the email just yet, yes, we have a discount on signing up for the program, $500 off the live program that comes with live workshops, and then $300 off. Is it 300 or 200? 300 off of our on-demand version, right? Which is the same program, but you don't get the live workshops and the office hours and that extra support. So again, you'll get the emails. All of it will be detailed on the website of the 2 different programs. But yes, if you want that extra discount, tonight is the night to act fast. Kevin asked, do you have the link? Yes, we can give that link for you.
Yeah, let me go get it real quick.
All right, cool. So yeah, we'll go ahead and conclude, everybody, so you guys can get to the rest of your evening. We'll get that link for Kevin. I'll stick around if anybody had any lingering questions that they want to bring up for me, but I will go ahead and excuse everybody else. Thank you for participating, and I hope you enjoyed.